"Mom, I'm home." The human soldier returned the alien queen's lost daughter, and she broke down in tears. Captain Elias Ward leaned back in the pilot chair of his small spacecraft, the Intrepid, staring at the swirling clouds of the Crimson Nebula ahead. His jaw was tight, his mind racing. This mission was unlike any other. He was not merely exploring unknown space or delivering supplies. He was looking for a child, a princess, lost somewhere in this dangerous region. The girl's name was Lyra, daughter of Queen Zithuria, ruler of the Zithurian people. For years, humans and Zithurians had fought side by side against the Voraks, a violent species that thrived on conquest and fear. Lyra had been taken during one of the last battles, snatched by a Voraks raiding party before anyone could stop them. The queen had begged for her daughter's safe return, and the Council of Human Commanders had entrusted Elias with the task. Elias ran a hand over the console. The sensors showed nothing but swirling red gases and scattered asteroids. Navigation was going to be tricky. The nebula was notorious for its magnetic storms and unstable gravity wells. Ships could vanish here without a trace. Most pilots avoided it, but Elias did not. Humans had a saying, "When there is no path, make one," and that was exactly what he intended to do. He tapped a few buttons, bringing the ship closer to the heart of the nebula. The red clouds of gas seemed almost alive, writhing like fire in slow motion. The sensors beeped warnings. A storm was forming. Elias adjusted the shields and activated the engines, guiding the Intrepid through the first layer of the storm. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from the control panels, yet he smiled faintly. "A little challenge never hurt anyone," he muttered. Hours passed. Space stretched endlessly, yet Elias did not feel alone. He had a map of old Voraks raiding routes, combined with reports from survivors and stray signals intercepted over months. Every piece hinted at a location, a derelict asteroid colony called Draction 7. It was a small, forgotten settlement on the edge of the nebula, abandoned after a failed mining operation decades ago. Many had gone looking and never returned. Elias, however, was human, and humans had a stubborn streak built into their DNA. As the Intrepid approached Draction 7, Elias saw the asteroid come into view. It was a jagged rock, cracked and scarred by decades of meteoroid impacts. Strange towers, remnants of old mining equipment, jutted from its surface. Smoke, or perhaps the remnants of old fires, drifted in wisps across the rock. It was quiet now, too quiet. His gut told him danger was near. Elias suited up in his armor, a combination of lightweight titanium plates and energy shielding. He checked his blaster and the survival pack, then opened the airlock. The asteroid's gravity was weak but enough to make movement cautious. Every step echoed in the silence. Every shadow could hide a threat. He remembered the Queen's voice, soft but trembling when she had pleaded. "Bring her back, Captain. She is all I have left." The words gave him strength. Humans had been through impossible odds before. They had survived plagues, wars, and catastrophic disasters on their home planet. Elias believed that same spirit could see them through the cold and dark of space, even in the face of alien horrors. He moved through the crumbling corridors of the old colony, the sound of his boots the only noise. Broken machinery lay scattered, rusting and useless. Strange markings were etched into the walls, some Voraks symbols, some that seemed almost like childlike drawings. A shiver ran down Elias' spine. He was not just here to fight. He was here to find a frightened child alone in a hostile place. Then he heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible sound, a cry muffled but unmistakable. Elias froze, his heart beat faster. He followed the sound, stepping over debris, moving through narrow passageways. The cries became clearer, fragile yet persistent. "Lyra," he whispered, not sure if he should speak. The sound of her name on his lips felt strange and powerful. The cry led him to a collapsed building, half buried under asteroid dust and rock. The structure had once been a communal hall for the miners, but now it was little more than ruins. Elias carefully lifted a piece of fallen metal, revealing a small figure huddled beneath. A young girl no older than 10, with wide violet eyes and hair like silver threads, looked up at him. She trembled, fear etched across her delicate features. "It's okay," Elias said softly, dropping to one knee so he was not towering over her. "I'm here to help." "My name is Captain Elias Ward. You're safe now." The girl did not move at first. Her body shook violently and tears rolled down her cheeks. Then, in a sudden moment of trust, she stepped forward, collapsing into his arms. Elias wrapped his arms around her, careful not to hurt her. He could feel the tiny body trembling against him. You're human," she whispered. Her voice was weak but laced with awe. "I thought no one would find me." Elias smiled gently. "Humans never give up. That's something you'll learn. We always find a way." Lyra clung to him, and Elias could feel the immense weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had faced countless enemies, survived deadly missions, and stared into the void of space without fear. But protecting this child, returning her to her mother, felt heavier than any battle he had fought. As he prepared to lift her into the ship, he scanned the surroundings. The colony was not completely abandoned. He spotted movement, Vorax scavengers, drawn perhaps by signals or the promise of capturing a valuable Zethurian child. Elias set Lyra down behind a broken wall and took a deep breath. The next moments were a blur of action. Elias darted from cover to cover, using the ruins to his advantage. He was outnumbered, but human ingenuity proved useful. He rigged traps from old machinery, creating noise and diversions that allowed him to pick off the enemy one by one. His blaster fired in calculated bursts, disabling shields and striking with precision. Lyra watched from behind the rubble, eyes wide, yet slowly she began to understand. Humans were clever, relentless, and fearless when it mattered most. She had heard stories of their courage, but seeing it firsthand was different. Elias was more than a soldier. He was a protector, a force of will that refused to let fear or death dictate his actions. After what seemed like hours, the last of the Vorax fell. The silence returned, broken only by the soft hum of the nebula winds outside. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, breathing hard, then turned to Lyra. "It's over. You're safe now," he said. She nodded, tears still streaming. I was so scared. I thought I'd never see my mother again." Elias lifted her into his arms carefully, carrying her toward the Intrepid. The journey back to the ship was tense but uneventful. Each step reminded him that every life saved was worth the risk, that humans were capable not just of war, but of hope, courage, and compassion in even the darkest corners of space. As they boarded the ship, Elias strapped Lyra into a seat and began preparations for departure. The Crimson Nebula stretched ahead, dangerous and unpredictable, but he felt ready. Humans had survived the worst, and together he and Lyra could face whatever came next. Lyra watched him quietly. Do all humans fight like you?" she asked softly. Elias chuckled, ruffling her hair. "No, some are smarter than me, some are braver, but one thing is certain, we never leave anyone behind. Never. Not a friend, not a stranger, not anyone." The ship's engines roared to life, and the Intrepid lifted off the broken surface of Draction 7. Red clouds of the nebula swirled around them, beautiful and deadly. Elias kept a steady hand on the controls, guiding them through the cosmic storm, determined to bring the lost child home. As the asteroid disappeared behind them, Elias allowed himself a small smile. The mission was far from over, but the first step had been completed. Humanity had once again shown that courage, ingenuity, and heart could overcome even the most impossible odds. And somewhere deep in the nebula, Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "Maybe humans are the bravest of all." The Intrepid cut through the red clouds of the Crimson Nebula, leaving the broken surface of Draction 7 behind. Elias Ward sat at the controls, eyes sharp, hands steady. Lyra sat next to him, still trembling from the fear and relief of being rescued. The young princess clutched a small piece of jewelry, an old charm from her mother, which seemed to anchor her to hope. The ship hummed steadily, yet the nebula was far from peaceful. Lightning arcs danced through the red clouds, twisting unpredictably. Magnetic storms threatened to disable the ship's navigation systems. Elias had flown through storms before, but this was different. The nebula seemed alive, almost as if it wanted to test those who dared enter. "Captain," Lyra said softly, pointing at the glowing readouts. Is it dangerous?" Elias glanced at her, offering a reassuring smile. "Danger is everywhere, Lyra, but humans, we find ways to survive. We look at a problem, then we solve it, step by step." She nodded slowly, watching the instruments. Her violet eyes reflected both fear and curiosity. For the first time in months, she was not hiding in shadows or running from monsters. She was learning that there were beings who would fight for her simply because it was the right thing to do. Hours passed as they navigated the storm. Elias adjusted the shields, timed the engine bursts, and relied on his instincts as much as the sensors. Each time a lightning bolt arced too close, he maneuvered the ship skillfully, letting the ship's hull absorb the brunt of the impact. He worked with precision, calm under pressure. Humans, he thought, had a unique ability to remain composed when the odds seemed impossible. As night fell in the nebula, if one could call it night amidst the glowing clouds, Lyra asked questions. Do all humans travel through space? Not all, Elias replied. But some of us, we explore, we protect, we help. Humans like to push themselves to see what we can do. We never stop learning and we never stop trying. Lyra leaned closer. And you do all this for people you don't even know? Elias shrugged, looking out at the swirling red clouds. Sometimes, yes, because life is valuable, every life. No matter the planet, no matter the species. Humans, we believe in hope, and we believe in doing what's right, even if it's hard. The girl was silent for a while, thinking about his words. For months, she had lived alone, hiding from captors and scavengers, unsure if anyone would ever come for her. Now, hearing about humans who risked everything for strangers, she began to understand that there were beings in the galaxy capable of great courage. Their quiet conversation was interrupted by a sudden alarm. The sensors picked up multiple fast-moving objects closing in from behind. Vorax fighters. The enemy had discovered her escape, and they were determined to reclaim their prize. Elias leaned forward, gripping the controls tightly. Lyra, stay down and keep calm. We're going to make it through this. The fighters appeared as dark specks against the crimson sky, then rapidly grew into sharp, angular ships. They fired plasma blasts that streaked past the Intrepid. Elias twisted the ship sharply, evading the first salvo. Sparks flew across the hull as some of the blasts grazed the shields. The Vorax pilots were skilled, but Elias had something they lacked: unpredictability. Human pilots were known for taking risks others wouldn't, for improvising when the rules of combat failed them. He dove the Intrepid through a dense cluster of floating asteroids, weaving and dodging while the Vorax struggled to follow. Lyra clutched the seat straps tightly, her heart racing. Captain, they're still chasing us. Elias gritted his teeth. Yes, but we're smarter than they think. Hold on. Using the debris field to his advantage, Elias launched a series of small automated drones from the cargo bay. The drones emitted bright flashes and false signals, confusing the enemy sensors. Vorax ships fired blindly, some colliding with asteroids, others spinning out of control. Elias seized the moment, boosting the engines and breaking through the storm into a clearer part of space. Lyra exhaled shakily. You saved us. Elias smiled faintly, though his hands never stopped moving. Humans always try, we don't give up, and neither should you. For hours, they traveled in silence, avoiding further attacks, navigating asteroid fields and checking the damaged shields. Elias knew that the nebula would not release them easily. The journey home was not just about distance, it was about surviving every hazard along the way. As the red clouds thinned, Lyra ventured closer to the cockpit. Captain, do humans always fight like that? Elias laughed softly. Not always, but humans are good at adapting. If something doesn't go according to plan, we make a new plan, we find a way. That's why we survive. Lyra thought about the past months, her capture, the lonely nights, the fear of being forgotten, and realized that humans were not only strong and brave, but clever and patient. Elias had demonstrated every quality she could imagine. She was beginning to trust him completely, and the thought made her feel safer than she had in months. Suddenly, the Intrepid's sensors picked up another anomaly, a gravitational field pulling them toward a hidden black hole near the edge of the nebula. It was small, almost undetectable, but strong enough to threaten the ship. Elias frowned. This was no random hazard. The Vorax were clever, but space itself was the deadliest opponent. Lyra, I need you to stay calm. We're going to navigate this together, he said. He activated the emergency thrusters and plotted a careful course. The black hole's gravity twisted space around them, making every maneuver a delicate balance. One wrong move and the Intrepid would be trapped forever. Elias adjusted constantly, pushing human ingenuity to its limit. Lyra watched him work, fascinated. You're amazing. Elias shook his head, smiling. I'm just human. Humans have a strange way of finding solutions. Sometimes luck, sometimes instinct, sometimes sheer stubbornness, but we don't stop until we succeed. After tense moments that felt like hours, the Intrepid cleared the black hole's pull. Elias allowed himself a short sigh of relief. See, we did it. Humans don't give up easily. Lyra's eyes sparkled with admiration. I think humans are brave in a way I never imagined, not just in fighting, but in never quitting. Elias reached over, ruffling her hair gently. And that's exactly what I want you to remember. No matter what challenges come, you keep moving forward. That's what makes us strong. The night in the nebula passed slowly, each hour bringing new challenges, but Elias remained focused and calm. He plotted their course toward Zithuria, the princess's home planet, knowing the journey would be long and fraught with danger. Yet he was confident. Humans had survived the impossible before, and they would do it again. By morning, the nebula began to clear. Red clouds gave way to the black expanse of space dotted with distant stars. Elias set a steady course for the Zithurian system. Lyra sat quietly, still processing the events of the last day. She had been lost, scared, and alone, but now she was alive and moving closer to home. You saved me, Captain, she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. Elias shook his head. We saved each other. You survived because you never gave up. Humans just help a little along the way. For the first time in months, Lyra allowed herself to relax. She trusted this human completely, and she began to feel hope growing in her heart. Perhaps her mother would see her again. Perhaps life could be safe and kind once more. The Intrepid sailed steadily through space, a small human ship carrying a fragile hope across the galaxy. Elias Ward guided it with skill, patience, and courage, demonstrating every reason why humans were admired across the stars. Bravery, ingenuity, and a heart that refused to quit. As the Zithurian system drew closer, Elias allowed himself a brief smile. The hard part was not over, but the first steps had been taken. Humanity had shown its worth once more, proving that even in the cold, unforgiving darkness of space, hope, courage, and compassion could shine brighter than any star. And somewhere deep in the cabin, Lyra whispered to herself, a small smile forming on her lips, humans, they are different. They fight not for glory, but for life, for others. The journey home had begun, and for the first time in months, both human and alien felt that home was within reach. The stars stretched endlessly before the Intrepid, shining like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Captain Elias Ward's eyes scanned the displays carefully, noting every flicker of movement in the sensor grids. Lyra sat beside him, her small hands gripping the edge of the console. She had grown quieter over the past day, lost in thought, but her violet eyes reflected a mixture of hope and unease. We're close, Elias said softly, more to himself than to Lyra. The Zithurian system is just ahead. A few more jumps and you'll see your home. Lyra's voice trembled slightly. I can't believe it. After so long, I'm going home. Elias gave her a small smile. Humans are stubborn. We don't give up easily. You survived because of that, and now we finish this journey together. The nebula was behind them, but the dangers were far from over. The Orcs were persistent, and Elias knew that they would not allow a Zithurian princess to escape without one last fight. His sensors had picked up faint signals trailing them for days. The enemy was clever, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Captain, Lyra said, pointing at the main display. There, something's ahead, bright lights moving fast. Elias leaned closer, squinting. Orcs fighters and more than I expected. They must have tracked us through the nebula. Looks like they've set a trap. He adjusted the ship's course, weaving through the asteroid field near the edge of the system. The fighters accelerated, sleek and deadly, their engines burning blue trails in the darkness. Elias' hands moved quickly, flipping switches and firing the ship's defensive systems. They're trying to hurt us, he muttered. Orcs are smart, but they underestimate humans. We'll show them what we can do. Lyra watched in awe as he maneuvered the Intrepid. The ship twisted and rolled, dodging plasma blasts that streaked past like fiery comets. Sparks danced along the hull as some attacks grazed the shields, yet Elias remained calm, calculating every move with a combination of instinct and experience. Stay low, Lyra. Hold on tight, he ordered. The young princess pressed herself against the seat, her heart racing. I'm not scared, she whispered, though her voice betrayed her nerves. Elias chuckled softly. Good, fear is natural, but we use it to sharpen our senses. Humans turned fear into focus. The fighters closed in. Elias activated the ship's stealth systems, dimming the lights and warping the sensors. The Orcs were momentarily confused, their formations breaking as they tried to identify the Intrepid's location. Using the confusion, Elias plotted a daring move, a rapid dive toward the center of the asteroid field, a maneuver that most pilots would call suicidal. Lyra's eyes widened. Captain, are you sure? Elias nodded firmly. Trust me. Humans have a way of finding solutions where others see none. Watch and learn. The Intrepid dove into the maze of jagged rocks. The Vorax fighters tried to follow, but many collided with asteroids or became trapped in narrow passages. Elias' knowledge of human ingenuity and quick thinking gave him an edge. He had studied countless emergency maneuvers and improvisations. He was not just relying on speed or firepower, he was relying on brains. Plasma blasts lit up the shadows as the fighters tried to catch him. One shot grazed the hull, triggering a loud alarm, but Elias adjusted the shields and continued. He launched a few counter-drones, small machines that emitted bright flashes and false signals, further confusing the enemy sensors. Lyra leaned forward, mesmerized. Humans are amazing. Elias smiled without taking his eyes off the controls. It's not magic. Humans just never quit. We adapt, we improvise, and we keep moving forward. That's why we survive. Despite the chaos, Elias maintained a clear plan. He guided the Intrepid through the asteroid field, using its hazards to his advantage. The Vorax fighters struggled to follow, some getting trapped or destroyed by their own mistakes. Human courage was one thing, but human creativity in crisis was another. It was something the Vorax could not predict. As the last of the enemy ships fell back, Elias knew this was not the end. The Vorax were relentless and would likely regroup for another attack. But he also knew that humans had something more valuable than firepower: determination. The Intrepid systems hummed steadily, shields repaired automatically, and engines cooled after the intense maneuvers. Lyra let out a shaky laugh. I can't believe we made it. Elias shook his head, still focused. This is only one battle. The journey isn't over yet, but humans, we keep fighting and we don't give up. For a few hours, the Intrepid traveled in relative safety. Elias plotted a course that would take them around known Vorax patrol zones. He kept Lyra occupied, telling stories of human history, of explorers, inventors, and warriors who had faced impossible odds and survived. Lyra listened, fascinated. She was learning more about humans than any ambassador could teach, a first-hand lesson in resilience, courage, and ingenuity. You've survived alone for months, Elias said quietly. That takes courage too, Lyra. Humans are brave, yes, but you've shown bravery of your own. Lyra blushed. I was just scared. I didn't know what else to do. Elias smiled. Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you human or Zethurian or whatever you are. Courage is acting even when you are afraid, and you acted every day to survive. The conversation calmed her. She felt pride for the first time in a long while. She began to see herself not as a victim, but as someone capable of hope and resilience. The lessons Elias imparted were not just about humans, they were about life, survival, and strength. Suddenly, the ship's sensors flared red. A massive shadow appeared ahead, a Vorax cruiser enormous and bristling with weapons. Elias' jaw tightened. The enemy had anticipated their route. Escape was not an option. They would have to fight. Lyra, this will be dangerous, Elias warned. Stay low, watch, but don't panic. The cruiser fired first, plasma bolts streaking toward the Intrepid. Elias maneuvered quickly, dodging the initial barrage. The Vorax were stronger, more organized, but humans had something they could never predict: adaptability. He darted among floating debris, using the cruiser's own weapons against it. A well-placed shot hit the asteroid field, causing a cascade of rocks to strike the enemy ship. Another volley from his counter-drones disrupted the cruiser's sensors, giving the Intrepid an opening. Lyra held her breath, gripping the edge of her seat. She saw not just a fight for survival, but a display of human ingenuity and courage. Elias was not simply shooting at enemies. He was reading the battlefield, improvising and finding solutions where none seemed possible. The battle raged on for hours. The cruiser adjusted its tactics, but Elias' mind was faster. He used every trick he knew: decoy flares, counter-drones, sudden maneuvers, and careful timing. Slowly, he turned the fight in his favor. The Vorax cruiser, unable to anticipate human unpredictability, was forced to retreat, battered and frustrated. Elias exhaled deeply, leaning back in his chair. That's the last of them for now. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. You did it again. Humans, they're incredible. Elias shook his head, smiling faintly. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we never give up. That's the difference. That's why humans survive. The rest of the journey through the void was tense but uneventful. Elias navigated carefully, avoiding patrol zones and hazards, teaching Lyra what he could along the way. She learned how humans relied on intelligence, patience, and creativity as much as strength. By the time the Zethurian system came into view, Lyra was smiling genuinely for the first time in months. I can see it. My home, Elias nodded. And soon you'll be safe. Your mother will be so happy to see you. But remember, what you've learned, the courage you've shown, and the hope you've held on to, keep it with you. That's what makes you strong. The stars of Zethuria shone brightly ahead, twin suns casting light on a planet filled with promise. The journey home was almost complete, but more challenges awaited, and Elias knew that their courage, skill, and human ingenuity would be tested one last time. Lyra looked out the window, awe in her eyes. Captain, thank you for everything. Elias gave a small, reassuring smile. Humans always try, that's all we can do, and sometimes that's enough to change the galaxy. Together, human and princess, they approached Zethuria. The journey through the void had been dangerous and uncertain, but it had also shown the power of hope, courage, and the human spirit. And for the first time in months, Lyra believed she would truly be home. The twin suns of Zethuria shone brightly, casting golden light across the planet's vast cities and sparkling oceans. From space, the world looked serene, peaceful, almost untouched. But Elias Ward knew that behind the calm exterior, the court was anxious. The Zethurian queen awaited the return of her daughter, and the entire system held its breath. Inside the cockpit of the Intrepid, Elias guided the ship carefully toward the planet's main spaceport. Lyra sat beside him, her small hands gripping the edge of her seat. Her eyes were wide with anticipation and a hint of nervousness. She had been gone for months, surviving alone, facing dangers that no child should endure. Now she was about to return home. Captain, do you think she'll remember me? Lyra asked quietly. Elias glanced at her, offering a reassuring smile. Your mother will never forget you, no parent could, and she will be so proud of how brave you've been. Lyra's lips trembled and she nodded. I hope she's not too sad. Elias reached over, gently holding her hand. She's sad because she's worried, but she'll cry tears of happiness when she sees you again. That's how love works. As they entered Zethurian orbit, the spaceport came into view. Ships of all sizes lined the docking stations, some sleek and metallic, others organic in design, reflecting the Zethurian aesthetic. Couriers, diplomats, and guards moved in coordinated patterns. But at the center of it all, waiting with a mixture of hope and fear, was the Queen herself. Queen Zethuria stood on the observation deck, her regal figure silhouetted against the twin suns. Her eyes scanned the sky, searching for the familiar ship. Her hands were clenched tightly, betraying the tension she tried to hide. When the sensors confirmed the arrival of the Intrepid, her breath caught. This moment, the moment she had prayed for, was finally here. Elias brought the ship down to the designated landing platform. The engines powered down with a soft hum, and the doors of the Intrepid opened. Lyra stepped forward, her small figure silhouetted against the open hatch. She looked nervous, hesitant, yet determined. Queen Zethuria's eyes widened as she saw her daughter. Lyra, she cried, her voice trembling. She rushed forward, her hands outstretched. Lyra ran, and in an instant they were in each other's arms. The queen held her daughter tightly, tears streaming freely down her face. My sweet child, my brave, brave child, she whispered. Lyra hugged her mother back, tears of relief and happiness falling as well. Mother, I'm home, I'm safe. Elias stood back, watching the reunion quietly. He had expected this emotional moment, but the raw intensity of it, the pure love and relief, was overwhelming. Humans were often praised for courage in battle, but he knew that strength of heart, the ability to inspire hope, was just as important. The court gathered around, curious and anxious. The royal advisors, diplomats, and guards all stared at the scene unfolding before them. They had heard of the human soldier who had braved the Crimson Nebula and Vorax ambushes to return the lost princess. Now they saw the evidence. Lyra alive and well, her bond with Elias a testament to human bravery and compassion. Queen Zethuria stepped back slightly, still holding Lyra. Her eyes found Elias, and she approached him, bowing deeply, not as a formal gesture, but as a sign of deep respect and gratitude. Captain Elias Ward, she said, her voice steady now but filled with emotion, you have brought my daughter back to me. You have risked everything for her safety. How can we ever thank you? Elias shook his head. No thanks needed, Your Majesty. Humans help because it's the right thing to do. We don't give up on life. Your daughter, she survived because she never gave up either. I just guided her home." The queen studied him for a moment, then nodded, understanding his humility. "Your courage and skill are extraordinary. Humans, you truly are remarkable. My people and I will remember this act for all time." Lyra pulled slightly away from her mother and looked at Elias. "Captain, thank you. I would have never made it without you." Elias knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "You were brave, Lyra. You never gave up even when it seemed impossible. That's what kept you alive. Humans, we just add a little guidance along the way." The court murmured, clearly impressed by the human's modesty and the bond he had formed with the princess. Diplomats whispered about the courage, ingenuity, and loyalty humans displayed, and many began to reconsider the value of forming alliances with them. Humans were more than warriors. They were heroes in the truest sense. Queen Cytherea led Lyra into the palace, while Elias followed at a respectful distance. The interior was vast and majestic, with high ceilings, gleaming floors, and glowing crystals embedded in the walls. But even the grandeur of the palace could not overshadow the joy and relief of the reunion. Lyra, now calmer, turned to Elias. "I never thought I would see home again. I'm glad you were there." Elias smiled. "Humans believe in hope, Lyra. And sometimes, hope is all you need to get through the darkest moments." The queen invited Elias to a private chamber, a rare honor for a human outsider. She offered him food and water, but more importantly, she offered her gratitude and trust. "Captain, your actions have not only saved my daughter but strengthened the bond between our peoples. Humans, you are courageous, clever, and compassionate. You remind us what it means to fight for life itself." Elias nodded humbly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Humans value life no matter the species. That's why we fight, why we explore, why we never give up. That's what makes us human." The queen smiled, tears still lingering in her eyes. "And that's why we will honor you and your people. The story of this rescue will be told for generations as a testament to human courage and kindness." Lyra, now seated beside her mother, looked at Elias with admiration and curiosity. "Captain, do all humans act like you?" Elias chuckled softly. "Not all. But humans have a way of rising to the occasion. When we see someone in need, we do everything we can to help. We improvise, adapt, and keep going, even when the odds are against us. And that is what makes humans extraordinary." The young princess smiled, absorbing the lesson. She had learned more about courage, hope, and determination in the past days than she could have imagined. She realized that strength was not just about fighting. It was about resilience, intelligence, and the willingness to act for others. As the sun set over Cytherea, casting a warm glow across the palace, Elias prepared to leave. The queen insisted on an official ceremony to honor him, but he declined. "I'm just a human doing what humans do," he said. "I couldn't let her be lost, that's all." Queen Cytherea nodded, understanding his humility. "Then let it be known that humans are our allies, our friends, and our heroes. We will never forget what you have done." Outside the palace, the stars began to emerge as night fell over the twin suns. Elias looked up, reflecting on the journey. Humans had faced impossible odds, survived storms, ambushes, and cosmic hazards, and had emerged not only victorious but as examples of courage, ingenuity, and hope. Lyra waved at him as he prepared to depart. "Captain, thank you for everything. For believing in me, for saving me." Elias smiled, tipping his head. "Remember what you've learned, Lyra. Keep your hope alive, stay brave, and never give up. Humans, we never stop trying. That's the secret." As the Intrepid lifted off the planet, Elias looked back one last time. The lights of the palace glimmered in the distance, the queen and princess safe, and the future of human and Cytherean relations strengthened. Humans had proven themselves not only as warriors, but as protectors, problem solvers, and symbols of hope across the stars. The journey home had ended, but the impact of their actions would be felt for generations. Humanity had once again shown the galaxy that courage, compassion, and determination could overcome any obstacle. Lyra whispered softly to her mother, her voice full of wonder. "Humans, they fight not just for themselves, but for others. They're amazing." And in that moment, Elias Ward, the human soldier who had braved the galaxy for a lost child, smiled quietly to himself. Humans were indeed extraordinary, and he was proud to be one of them. The stars shone bright above Cytherea, a promise of hope, unity, and courage, a testament to the human spirit. The twin suns of Cytherea rose over the horizon, casting golden light across the city as life returned to its normal rhythm. Yet the memory of the lost princess, the human soldier who had brought her home, and the dangerous journey through the Crimson Nebula remained alive in the hearts of all who had witnessed it. Captain Elias Ward stood on the observation deck of the palace, gazing at the city below. From this height, he could see children playing in the streets, merchants opening stalls, and ships taking off from the spaceport. It was a peaceful scene, a sharp contrast to the danger and chaos he had faced only days ago. And yet, the calm was earned, a result of courage, determination, and the choices that humans made when confronted with impossible odds. Queen Cytherea approached, her steps quiet but steady. Lyra followed closely behind, her small hand clutching her mother's. The princess had grown quieter, thoughtful, and reflective since returning home. She had seen the vastness of space, the dangers that lurked in the void, and the bravery of a human who had risked everything to save her. "Captain Elias," the queen began, her voice calm but warm, "I wanted to speak with you privately before the council convenes. There is much to discuss, and you deserve recognition beyond words." Elias turned to face her, bowing slightly out of respect. "Your Majesty, I did what any human would do. I simply acted." The bravery was hers, not mine. He nodded toward Lyra, who watched him intently, her eyes full of admiration. The queen smiled, her gaze steady. "Perhaps, but humans have a unique way of turning determination into action. You have proven that courage is more than strength, more than weapons. It is in the choices one makes, in the hope one carries, and in the lives one protects. That is the human legacy." Elias allowed a small smile. Humans had long believed in helping others, exploring the unknown and overcoming impossible odds. This recognition, while humbling, was proof that their values resonated far beyond Earth. Lyra stepped forward, her small hand brushing against Elias' armor. "Captain, do humans always help like you did, even for people they've never met?" Elias looked down at her, his eyes softening. "Not always, Lyra, but many humans do. We believe in doing what is right, even if it is hard. We believe that life, every life, is worth protecting. That's how we survive and grow stronger together." Lyra's violet eyes glimmered with understanding. "I understand now. Humans, they fight not just with weapons, but with hope, with heart." The queen nodded in agreement. "And that is why I have called this council. Humans are not just allies, they are a symbol of courage, unity, and the power to change the galaxy for the better. Captain Elias, I would like you to join us as an honorary envoy. Your actions have strengthened our bond, and your wisdom will guide us as we face future challenges together." Elias felt a sense of pride, but also humility. He had never sought recognition or titles. His mission had been simple: find the lost princess, keep her safe, and return her to her mother. Yet here he stood, honored not just for his courage, but for the ideals that humanity represented: ingenuity, persistence, and compassion. "I accept, Your Majesty," he said finally. "Not for myself, but so humans can continue to help wherever it is needed, so that others may see what we value most: hope, courage, and life itself." The queen's smile broadened, and Lyra squeezed his hand, her gratitude silent but powerful. "Thank you, Captain," she said softly. "I will never forget you, and I will carry what you've taught me as I grow." Over the next days, the palace was alive with preparations. Humans were celebrated not just for bravery in battle, but for the principles they carried. Ambassadors, scholars, and citizens alike came to learn about human strategies, their resilience, and their ability to unite even in the darkest circumstances. Tales of Elias' journey through the Crimson Nebula and the Vorac's ambush spread throughout Cytherea, inspiring admiration and hope. Elias spent time teaching the royal guards and advisors about human problem-solving. He demonstrated tactics that combined intelligence, improvisation, and courage. He shared stories of Earth's history, showing how humans survived floods, fires, wars, and disasters by thinking creatively and acting with heart. Every lesson carried a single truth: humanity thrived not only because of strength, but because of ingenuity, compassion, and determination. Lyra absorbed every word, eager to learn. She asked questions, practiced strategies, and listened carefully to the stories of human perseverance. She had been a child who had faced fear and uncertainty, and now she was growing into a young leader who understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. As the days passed, Elias prepared to leave Cytherea. The mission was complete. The princess was safe, The queen was grateful, and the alliance between humans and Zethurians was stronger than ever. Yet his departure was bittersweet. He had formed a bond with Lyra and seen the potential of what humans could bring to the galaxy. "You will return one day, Captain," Lyra said, hugging him tightly. "I know it." Elias smiled, ruffling her hair gently. "Perhaps. But remember, Lyra, you are brave, clever, and strong. You survived alone and found hope in the darkest places. That is what humans and you are capable of. The future is yours to protect." The queen stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Elias Ward, know that you have changed Zethuria forever. Your courage, your patience, and your heart have left a mark on our people. Humans are our allies, yes, but now they are also our inspiration. Your legacy will be remembered." Elias bowed deeply, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am honored, and I am proud to be human." With the formal farewells complete, Elias boarded the Intrepid. Lyra waved from the palace balcony, and the queen stood silently, watching the ship lift off. As the engines powered up, Elias looked back one last time. The twin suns glowed warmly, and he felt a deep satisfaction. Humanity had proven itself once again, not just in battle, but in heart, in wisdom, and in courage. The journey back into the galaxy was quiet. Elias navigated carefully, reflecting on what had transpired. Humans had survived, thrived, and inspired others across countless worlds. They had faced impossible odds in the Crimson Nebula, survived Vorax ambushes, and returned hope to a royal family in despair. Lyra sat beside him, quietly drawing in a small notebook. She was recording every lesson, every story, every moment that had shaped her journey. "Captain, humans, they are extraordinary," she said softly. Elias glanced at her. "They are, and every human has the chance to show that courage and hope can overcome even the darkest challenges. That's the legacy we leave, Lyra." The ship glided through the stars, a small human vessel carrying not just a rescued princess, but the ideals of an entire species. Elias knew that humans had a reputation across the galaxy, but what mattered most was the example they set. That intelligence, empathy, and determination could change the course of history. Weeks passed as the Intrepid returned to human space. News of the mission spread quickly, inspiring other human explorers, soldiers, and diplomats. They learned that heroism was not measured only by strength, but by the ability to act with heart, to protect life, and to persevere against impossible odds. Back on Zethuria, Lyra began rebuilding her life. She studied human tactics, practiced leadership, and strengthened the bond between her people and humanity. She remembered Elias' lessons about courage, hope, and persistence. She understood that strength came not from fearlessness, but from acting despite fear. And she knew that humans had left an imprint not just on Zethuria, but on her heart. Elias' mission had ended, but its effects continued. Human ingenuity and bravery became legendary among the Zethurians. Ambassadors from other systems came to learn from humans. Stories of perseverance and clever problem-solving spread, inspiring countless others across the galaxy. The idea of humans as allies, not only for their strength but for their wisdom and compassion, grew stronger every day. As Elias finally looked out at the endless stars, he allowed himself a quiet thought. Humans were not just survivors. They were heroes, explorers, teachers, and protectors. And wherever hope was needed, wherever courage was tested, humans would be there. He piloted the Intrepid forward, toward new adventures, knowing that humanity's legacy, its heart, mind, and spirit, would continue to shine across the stars. And somewhere on Zethuria, Lyra whispered to herself, a soft smile on her lips. Humans, they are more than warriors. They are hope, they are life, they are extraordinary. The galaxy, vast and endless, had witnessed humanity at its finest, and the story of Elias Ward and the lost princess would be told for generations. It was a story not just of survival, but of courage, compassion, and the indomitable spirit that made humans stand out among the stars. For the first time, Elias realized something profound. Humanity's greatest weapon was not firepower, not technology, but the heart that refused to quit. And that heart would shine forever.